Hi, my name is Usman. I'm the lead photographer at Sonder Creative, and today I want to talk about something that I think every architectural, interior and landscape photographer needs to have, and it's this little thing. Now, before you jump to conclusions, no, this is not for white balancing. It's been designed for a very different purpose. Now, if you shoot with tilt shift lenses, you may have come across a situation where the building is just a little bit too big, or you just can't get far back enough, so you have to shift the lens right to the edges. And when you do that, you start to notice this darkening of the corners and this vignette, which is not great, and it's also a little bit tricky to take out in post, especially because tilt shift lenses don't have their own profiles built into Lightroom and Photoshop. The other circumstance is if, let's say, you shoot with filters like polarizing filters. Now, with polarizing filters, they're fantastic to take out some of the glare, or if you want to add a little bit of punch to the sky. The problem is you get these weird exposure spots where you've got certain dark spots and certain bright spots, which again can be a little bit tricky to take out. Sometimes you just want to cut the glare, but you don't want your image to have uneven exposure. So what this does is it helps you do something called a lens cast calibration. So I've got the camera set up behind me. I'm going to take a couple of shots and I'm just going to run you through how you can use this to improve your images. Okay, so I've now got the camera set up. I'm using the 24 tilt shift on the 5DSR, and I've already shifted the lens all the way to the top. So I'm going to take a quick picture and show you what kind of vignette you get when you do this. So now you can see in the image how the top section of the sky is noticeably darker than the rest of the image. And when I'm looking over here, that's not what the sky looks like. You've got quite an even exposure throughout it. It's quite a flat sky. Now, some of you might be wanting to use this for creative purposes, but this doesn't work if you're shooting an interior or if you're shooting a building. You don't want that darkened effect on the building. And I think that you shouldn't even want it in the sky because it's baking in that vignette into the image. And I would much rather apply my effects and filters in post where I have full control over that. So to take that out, we're just going to grab one of these, and once you've taken the shot without changing the aperture or the composition, you put this in front of the lens and you adjust the exposure until you can see a bright image with the vignette across the frame. So I think that should be okay. So there we go, and now you can see the vignette quite clearly in the image and how much of an impact it's actually having on your image. Now, for the second example, I'm going to put a polarizing filter on the front of the lens. This is a B&W polarizing filter. I think it adjusts the exposure by about 1.5 stops, and I'll just put this on quickly and then we'll take a couple of shots with this as well. So for this one, I've shifted the lens back down so you're not seeing the vignette from the lens, and we're only seeing what the polarizing filter is doing to the image. So that's the first image with the polarizer, and you might be able to see how some parts of the sky are kind of darker compared to the rest of it. So I'll just put this on the front with the polarizing filter still attached. We're not changing any of the aperture settings or the polarizer or the composition. We need to do this with the settings still the same. So put this on the front, and we're only going to use the shutter speed to adjust the exposure until we start to see a bright image with that vignette being cast on the frame. Okay, and I think this one works. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to take the images back into my office. We're going to open them up in Capture One, and I'm going to show you how you can apply these profiles that we've created onto the image to get the cleanest, most even exposures for all of your images. Also, if you have any dust in your tilt shift lenses, which they are prone to getting, then this also cleans that up as well, giving you the best and cleanest exposures without any dust or any imperfections. So here we have a bunch of images opened up in Capture One now, and looking at the first image, you can see how dark the top section of the image is. And this is purely because of the tilt shift lens being shifted too far. So when we look at the calibration image, again, you'll see how the exposure is relatively bright and then changes as you go up. You've got this vignette, kind of looks like an ND, but it's not really an ND, that's just light which is not getting to the sensor as effectively. So to do this, very straightforward, you just right click and there's an option called Create LCC. And you make sure that these two are selected. You hit Create, and it will now go through the motions, and Capture One will automatically remove any of the vignette or any of the issues that are present. And there we go. And you can see how much cleaner the corners are now, and you've got such an even exposure throughout the frame. Now to apply this to the image, very straightforward. Shift click, and then you right click on the image, and there's an option called Apply LCC. Just click on that, and easy as that. That's it, vignette gone, really even exposure, really clean image, and you don't have any issues in terms of the vignette because you shifted the lens too far. And what this is doing is expanding the capabilities of your tilt shift lens. So you can now shift right to the edges of your tilt shift lens, get every last millimeter without having any issues come into the image. So if we bring back some of the highlights, increase the shadows, add some contrast, and there we have it. Now moving on to the second image, you can see how you've got this dark patch in the sky. Now I know that some people use polarizing filters for that effect, but that's not what I'm demonstrating in this video. All I'm doing is showing you how you can get an even exposure even whilst using a polarizing filter. Because there are many occasions where you just want to cut out some of the glare, or you just want to maybe you just want to get some of the reflections down in the window or something to that extent. If you're shooting interiors, you don't want to change in the exposure, you just want to cut the glare out. And to do that, you just use the same technique. Again, right click on the profile image, and you can see how the exposures are relatively different. So it's a little bit darker there, a little bit darker here. You haven't got an even exposure throughout the whole frame. So right click, Create LCC, and there we go. And now look at this, it's much more even. You haven't got any dark corners. Same process as before. Right click and apply LCC, and there we go. Do you see how you've still got the color of the sky from the polarizing filter without the change in exposure? And even at the bottom, that's the before. Do you see how those corners were much darker? And now they've been brightened up again. Now for the last image, I've already applied the LCC on this image, but I'll show you what it looked like before and after. So we'll just reset this image. And do you see how the building was much darker? Now the building obviously had an even amount of light coming through. This is not what the image looked like, or this is not what the place looked like. There was no vignette on the building. But when you apply the LCC to it, it just clears it all up. And you've got this very clean looking image and a very even exposure. So now when you bring back some of the highlights, you can bring back those highlights, maybe not recover any shadows too much on this one, add a bit of contrast, and you've got this really even exposure throughout the frame without any unwanted vignettes coming into it. So there you have it, a simple and effective method that you can use to really expand the capabilities of your tilt shift lenses and your filters. And as you saw in my example, it's really easy to do. It's just a couple of clicks in Capture One and you get this really smooth, even exposure throughout the frame. If you're based in the UK and you're interested in buying this product, I will leave a link below. I'm not sponsored in any way, shape or form. I'm not being paid to make this video. This is just something that I use, which I think is going to be very useful to a lot of photographers. But if you are in the UK and you use the link that I've got below, this is how it will appear. This is how you'll receive it. You get this little pouch, and you get two cards in there, one which is a little bit smaller, the one that I used in the video. This is for regular size lenses and for normal screw-on filters. But if you are using the larger filter sets or bigger lenses, then you do have a bigger card in there too. To everyone based in the US, I will leave a link below to B&H's website. That's the only one that I could find. It's a little bit pricier on B&H's website, so if you do find it somewhere cheaper or somewhere else, then by all means, buy it there. Again, like I said, I'm not being sponsored or anything like that. This is just something that I thought people would find useful. Anyway, Just want to say thank you so much for watching my video. I really appreciate you guys taking the time. If you have any comments or suggestions, please leave them below. If you found this video useful, or if you liked the video, please hit the like button, please subscribe, and I hope to see you guys soon. Thank you.